Well, let's get to the advisory now and to discuss why affordable quality financial advice is needed to cut through the noise. Pivot Wealth founder Ben Nash joining us now. Ben, good to see you again.
Good to be here.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there, isn't there, that we have to filter out, and it's incredibly difficult to know what to believe, who to listen to. How do you work that out?
Yeah, look, I think it's a bit like drinking from the fire hose, that there's so much information out there, as you rightly say, that it's hard to know who to listen to and who to trust. And that noise, I think, can definitely be overwhelming. I think that what people should realize is that there's a lot of different ways to be right when it comes to money. And ultimately, there's some things that are bad ideas and those should definitely be avoided. But then there's a whole set of good ideas. And ultimately, you want to find something that you're comfortable with, that you can be confident in, because if you're not confident in what you're doing, the actions that you're taking, the investments that you're making with your money, you're never going to actually follow through. So finding an approach that you resonate with is important to help you sort of pare back your options, and then that can help to avoid at least some of the noise.
And you say this is a question of timing. So what, for example, if you come up with a good idea, it's not necessarily right for you at that time. So how do you sort that?
That's right. Yeah, we found that there are different stages that people move through with their money, that ultimately what most people are working towards is that full financial freedom and independence, where you've got enough money that you can live the lifestyle that you want and you effectively don't have any barriers. But no one really starts there. You start at the start. You've got to put the building blocks in place, set what we call the foundations of your money, and then you get your savings plan in place. You start doing some investing. Then in the next stage, property starts to make sense, and that can be a real accelerator, get you some tax efficiencies. And as things build further, things like tax strategies, tax structures become more important, and that's what helps you progress through the later stages. So I think that there's so many different opinions that people have about money, and I think it's probably our fault that we tend to be a little bit adamant about our opinions and we talk in absolute terms, but something can be a bad idea for you right now, but it could be a great idea later on, or vice versa. And so recognizing that, I think, is an important first step for people.
Yeah, how do you not get ahead of yourself though, when you're perhaps looking to invest, be it maybe buying a property, but maybe now's not the time to do that? How do you assess that timing and your capacity, I guess, to borrow and to invest?
Well, I think being clear on what your financial I call your financial trajectory is, which is if you keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, saving and investing at the rate that you're doing, where do you expect that you'll be in 6 months from now, 6 years from now? And that gives you a bit of a baseline to work with. From there, you can look at, well, what if I did buy the property? How is that going to fit from a cash flow perspective? What does it do from an asset growth perspective? How much of an impact does that have on my lifestyle? And then you can assess whether it works for you, because there's the financial impact, and something needs to work for you ultimately, but there's a financial impact and there's a lifestyle impact. The right decisions are generally the thing that finds the right balance between the two of those. And so it really, particularly when it comes to something like property, which is such a big decision with such a big price tag attached to it and such a long-term impact on your finances and your lifestyle, a lot of people do it by firstly understanding, well, how much money can I borrow? Like, how much will the bank lend me? And then they look at properties and think, oh, what do I like? What sort of property do I like? And where could I see myself living? And how will this property feel? And no doubt those things are important, but they're not the only important things. You want to make sure that if you buy a property, you can afford to not just make the mortgage payments, but that you can pay down the mortgage in a time frame that you're happy with, and that you can invest enough money to hit the other goals that you've got from a financial perspective, and that you've got the money to live the lifestyle that you want as well. Because just because the bank will lend you the money, it doesn't mean that it's all of those other things are going to fit too. So people make the decisions without knowing the numbers, which to me it seems a bit crazy given how big the impact actually is.
And just that question of timing, does it come down to those life moments of maybe getting your first job, buying your first house, getting married, having kids? They're all seminal moments in life. Are those the times you need to seek financial advice, get a second opinion? Because we've seen the ads, don't get advice off your best mate or your man or your old man or whatever. It's all about getting some independent advice, isn't it?
Yes, look, I think that when people are in the really early days with their money, things are pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward what you need to do. You need to be spending less than you earn so that you can save some money and building up some investments. But once you progress much beyond that point, particularly when it starts getting into property strategies and those bigger decisions that you're making, at that point, that's when the difference between making a good decision and the best decision, or a not so good decision, that has price tags that are in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the years ahead. And so that's where you want to make sure that you've got the best strategy in place, the right approach. And that's where advice can be really helpful.
Ben, what about retirement planning? And I guess you're going to talk to closing that retirement gap, if you like, the importance of that.
Well, today, a 65-year-old today, the stats are showing us that the average super balance is a little bit under $300,000. And if we look at how much of an investment income that can give you in retirement, you're looking at maybe around $15,000 a year or thereabouts. Even with the age pension and some government benefits added on top of that, the income for the average Aussie is a lot lower than what the average income is for a full-time worker. We've got an average income of just over $100,000 a year. So that shows that there's a significant gap there. And if you don't want to be forced to settle for less in retirement, then you need to do something to close that gap. The sooner you start, the easier it is and the less that you need to do. But particularly if you're coming up to retirement or when you want to be starting to wind back from the workforce, you want to be planning as soon as possible, because the best time to start was always 10 years ago, but the second best time is right now. And if you wait a month, a year, or multiple years, it just means that you need to do more or sacrifice more to end up in the same position, or you need to settle and sacrifice on the position that you actually end up in at the end. And if you don't make a conscious choice, if you don't make an active choice, that eventually will be forced on you, which is not a great outcome for anyone.